Well, good morning to you. Welcome to another edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. I'm your host, Jim Tabor, along with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition, located on Calamar Ray Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. Well, this is a call-in show. We have already picked a topic, and we invite you to call in and ask questions regarding that topic and or anything else regarding your health, because that's what this show is all about, is living a healthier lifestyle. Our numbers are 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. Excuse me. Well, this morning on the Doctor's Nutrition Show, we're talking about something that a lot of people deal with on a daily basis and sometimes not even aware that's what it is.
Yep.
And that's neuropathy, the pain of neuropathy. What exactly is neuropathy?
Well, it's an inflammation which and or damage to the nerves, which causes pain. Like you said, if it's in the foot, okay, it's going to cause pain in the foot or tingling, numbness, that kind of thing. That's all part of that neuropathy syndrome. Mm-hmm. And it can be from either damage from either things like, prediabetes, diabetes, those kind of things. It can be secondary to some medications even.
And nutrient deficiencies.
Nutrient deficiencies.
So, and like I said, neuropathies, people have heard of carpal tunnel. That's a neuropathy. You can have optic nerve neuropathy, right, which actually causes vision issues. So anything that pretty much damages the nerve is technically a neuropathy. And
is tingling pretty much the only kind of symptom that you have?
No, it can be all kind of things.
You can have burning pain.
Pain is probably one of the big things.
Yeah,
pain.
But just a burning pain and or
you can have a tingling. You can have a numbness. You can have it to where if it's bad enough where you can't walk, where it even weakens the muscles around it because the nerve itself actually supplies the muscles. Mm-hmm. So it can actually cause a lot of different things. Yeah. But you see a lot of people where it starts, it's usually that tingling and pinpricks,
right,
like little needles and numbness and pain.
Like when your foot's gone to sleep or something like that.
Kind of, but yet it's all the time. Yes.
Except it's all the time.
Except it's all the time. Right. It's not just when you're sat wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
What causes it?
Well,
like I said, one of the biggies is that we see is the prediabetes and diabetes, and a lot of these folks don't even know they're pre-diabetic. Mm-hmm. We actually get people in all the time that we do lab work on. They don't know they're diabetic. They have no idea, no clue.
Or they say, I have tons that come in, I've been borderline, but I'm not diabetic. And then we check them and they're severe diabetic. Yeah. So, a lot of people think they're okay and they're not. Right. And so that's another reason we always recommend doing lab work. So you know where you are. And we recommend it at least once a year, even if you don't have problems. That way you know when they're coming. You can do something about it before it comes. Yeah. Because prevention is definitely the key.
Especially the older you get.
Exactly.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Or the more you mature.
More mature, yes. Right. Yeah. The more mature we get, the more we need to pay attention to it. When you're 25, you're not as likely.
Susceptible to it.
You're not susceptible. You're still pretty good shape, hopefully. But as we mature, there's no doubt about it, things start happening. We're programmed. If you look at our genetics, they're kind of programmed to things to stop working like they should, or they don't, those genes don't keep up with everything. So we can't live to be 150 or
the mitochondria slows down, right, and which decreases energy to the cells, right, which decrease how efficient they work, and all that plays a role. But you ask, what causes it? It can be a cause, like he said, prediabetes and diabetes is a big cause, mm-hmm, but another giant cause is nutrient deficiencies. Mm-hmm. And that's ones that we definitely see if we do lab work, but B12 has been shown, a lot of the B vitamins, mm-hmm, B1, B6 deficiency can cause a neuropathy, but too much B6 can cause a neuropathy. So you kind of have to look at that as well. Yep. Now,
again, that's why you do blood work, to see how
that's why you do,
folic acid deficiency can affect the nerves, vitamin D deficiency, vitamin E deficiency, copper deficiency. And when you start looking at copper deficiencies, a plain copper deficiency on its own is not that common, although we have seen so many people since COVID taking zinc. And zinc does help the immune system, but zinc also can deplete copper.
And some of them were taking some pretty good doses of zinc, without thinking, like, okay, well, this is really good for my immune system, and it is, mm-hmm, or can be, but then if you deplete your copper, we've caused another problem. And that's what we've seen quite a bit of, actually.
So the copper is something, and you can check zinc and copper. It's not on our regular panels, but you can actually add it. Oh, yeah. And it's not that expensive to add to see where your zinc and copper are. And if you look and see where they are, and the copper is on the low end, and you have a neuropathy that can't be explained, because 20-something% of all neuropathies they call idiopathic, which means they can't find the reason. So, but sometimes they're not checking for things like copper deficiency, and they're not checking for some of the other, vitamin E deficiency. We see a lot of that when we do lab work. So you can definitely have vitamin deficiencies that cause it. Also the cause, like he mentioned a minute ago, was medications. There's a lot of medications that are linked with neuropathies. And your chemo medications are definitely linked with neuropathy.
That we get a lot of those people in. They've had cancer for whatever reason, some sort of cancer, and they've been on a chemotherapy, and it caused, especially the platinum drugs, cisplatin, those kind of things, really known for it. And they cause some sort of neuropathy, and these poor people are coming in wanting to know, is there anything we could do for that neuropathy? And in a lot of cases, it's very difficult, because that's a very difficult thing to overturn, because there's been damage from a very toxic element, and it's hard to kind of
That's
do
another thing, that. Toxins.
Yeah, all kind of toxins.
Just toxins can actually make neuropathy.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
if you're around a lot of pesticides, or if you're around chemicals.
They're everywhere, right?
Right. So that can also increase neuropathies.
And they call some of these chemicals or things forever chemicals. And the reason? The darn things are here forever. I mean, they don't go away. So what do? Well, you've got these things, and people don't realize this. The public was just totally unaware that these forever chemicals are in us, they're around us, they're everywhere. Plastics are especially one of the biggies, fire retardants, those kind of things. All this stuff, and it accumulates. So if you get a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, over time.
And some people's bodies may handle them better than others, and other people's bodies may be unable to handle it and cause something like a neuropathy. Now, you can also have structural problems that cause neuropathy. So when we start talking about structure, you think more about back problems. You think like carpal tunnel, that's from repetitive motion, and then you start tightening around that nerve, and it puts things that put pressure on the nerve. Because over time, pressure on the nerve eventually damages the nerve. And you actually get problems with that. So there's so many different types of neuropathies and things that can cause neuropathies. That's why they're so common.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about neuropathy this morning, and we're going to take a break here in just a moment and come back with more of that. And if you know someone that's dealing with it, get them on the phone, tell them to tune in, because we'll be here talking more about it in just a little bit here. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. And welcome back to the Doctor's Nutrition Show. We're talking about neuropathy this morning, what to look for as far as the symptoms, what causes it, how is it treated?
If it's a nutritional problem, we start out with and you have to start with basic nutrients. I mean, things like B12 and folate, those are big. Those are huge. But even D.
There's some of the, but the B12, just to let you know, most people out there are taking the wrong kind of B12. And they've actually shown with neuropathies that cyanocobalamin is not the form to use when you have a neuropathy, which is what's in a lot of multis out there. It's in a lot of old designed products. Methylcobalamin is the type of B12 that you want. And it's always best to check the nutrients to see if that's part of the problem, because it's not always the problem. And so you want to check these things to find out what is the problem.
Right, and even vitamin D, and we see so many people that are deficient in vitamin D. It's just unbelievable. And just by being in range, the medical range, doesn't necessarily mean that you've got an adequate amount. So that's another key. I mean, you're in range, but that range is big enough to drive a Mack truck through it, so you got to be on the upper end of that range to be adequate, and for a lot of people. So, something like that. Very, very hard to say exactly what's going to help. That's one of the downsides to it. When you start looking at these nutrients, there's so many. The fat solubles, and then one of the biggies that we see for any treatment, almost anybody that's got a formula, if you will, for the neuropathies and so on, you're going to have alpha lipoic acid.
Right, alpha lipoic acid, doesn't matter which kind of neuropathy you have as well.
Right.
Because, when we start talking about the diabetic neuropathies, first thing is you have to control that sugar. If you do not get the sugar down, you're going to keep having damage. So if you keep having damage, how are you going to help a problem when the cause is still there? You always got to look for the cause of the problem. And so that's why I always say you have to know.
And something about that pre-diabetes, that we get a lot of people in, like she mentioned earlier, somebody says, well, I'm borderline. Okay, if you're borderline, you're causing damage.
Right.
Some of the research has indicated that a lot of the hemoglobin A1C, usually the range goes up to about 5.6, that you're still okay. But they've actually shown, some of the research has shown that like 5.5 up in that range, you're starting to cause damage. So you want to keep it as low as you possibly can, because if it gets into that pre-diabetes range from that 5.7 up to 6.4, you're causing some pretty significant damage. And it's just going to, it's not only the nerves, it's going to damage things like eyes and kidneys and things like that.
People don't realize your organs are being damaged sometimes as well, not just the pain that you're having. You feel that, so you know it.
Yeah, you feel that.
But there's other things that go along with it.
Are there diet options?
One of the biggies, and we talked about.
I know the big thing is cut out sugar.
Well, cut out sugar, but one of the big things that we talked about just a bit ago was toxins, right? Okay, a lot of your packaged processed food, start reading the labels, and they've got so many things in there that are really, if you dig it up, look into the research on it, they're accumulative. They stay in your body, they keep accumulating, and at a certain point, they're going to be toxic.
I always say that if you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't eat it.
You shouldn't eat it. Right.
If you don't know what one of the ingredients are, don't eat it.
A rule of thumb on toxic materials like that, if you read a label and it's got something like, I don't know, whatever, just methyl dextrose, all right, if you can't go to your pantry that you normally cook out of and pick up a box or a bottle or whatever of methyl dextrose, you don't need to be eating it. You should put that back on the shelf. Anything that's on that label that's not in your pantry, that is a chemical that is designed to trick you and your palate, how it tastes and your addiction to food. That's what it's all about.
Now we have a product called NeuroRenew that we use a lot with neuropathies that works really well. It is a combination of your methylcobalamin, your methylfolate, your benfotiamine, which is an activated B1. It has your lipoic acid, and then it also has there's one other ingredient, I think it's carnitine.
Oh yeah, acetylcarnitine.
And so carnitine has been shown to actually help as well. So there's a lot of things that you can take together. You can take them separate, you can take it, and it really, like I said, it depends on what's causing your problem also. Because if it is diabetes, then we do something, glucose support formula, berberine, to actually help with blood sugar control. We even have something called inosine. Now it is more for the pain. It does help with repairing the nerve as well, but it does help with nerve pain. And that makes a big difference too.
Makes a really big difference. When you start looking at all of it, it's kind of a trial and error, and a lot of people say, well, I just want this pill that's going to fix it. I don't know. You can't tell what's going to fix yours and or hers or mine or anybody else's, It's a trial and error situation because, you might be deficient in something that I'm not. If I take it, it's not going to affect me, but you take it, hey, it's going to make a world of difference in you. And the bad thing is we get a lot of this where people say, well, my neighbor took so-and-so and it just cured him like overnight. He's just like he's a 25-year-old again. Great. Try it and see. It might. If it doesn't, don't throw rocks at it. It's just a matter of the difference between the people.
Right. And also timing. People expect something to work overnight. Yeah. And most of the time when it comes to neuropathy, it took a while to get there, and it took nerve damage, and nerves are slow to heal.
They're very slow to heal.
So you do have to give it time. It's not like you can take something and within 2 days you can tell how it's going to work. Because people are like, well, can you give me a sample of that and see if it works? Well, you're not going to tell with a neuropathy on a sample. That is for sure.
Does it ever go away? I mean, entirely?
Yes, some people do, especially when it comes from a nutrition deficiency. We have people all the time where if it's coming from like a B12 deficiency, a folate deficiency, whatever deficiency, you fix the deficiency, you give them stuff to help heal the nerve, and yes, it can go away. Now, in diabetic neuropathy, the sugar has to be controlled for it to go away, is what I've found over all the years. You have to get rid of the source of the problem. That's number one. So no matter what is causing it, that's the thing, is you got to figure it out. That's why we do lab work.
Yep.
And then you got to heal the nerve, and you heal the nerve with stuff like, benfotiamine, lipoic acid, acetylcarnitine, B12, folate, if that's part of the issue. And like I said, you have to control the cause.
Yeah, we get a lot of people ask, y'all push, doing the lab work quite a bit. Yeah, we do, because that's how and to see it, the actual black and white, now you know what's going on. Because if you don't do that, sort of like you always use the car as an analogy. Do you just decide, well, you know, gee, I think I'll put some oil in my car? Don't check it. Don't just raise the hood and start pouring oil in it. Is that a good idea? Ask any mechanic, they'll tell you no. And it's the same thing with your body. It's probably not a good idea to start dumping stuff in there if you don't know what you're dumping. And we need to know what.
And don't know what the cause is to
Right.
begin with. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got a question, but we only have about 20 seconds, so we're going to we'll come back and answer that question
Right.
in just a moment or two. But we're talking about neuropathy this morning and how to deal with it. If you're dealing with it, know somebody else who's dealing with it. We have some more information that we're going to brighten your day with. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We are talking about neuropathy this morning, and now we had a viewer with a question, hoping for an answer.
Hopefully we got an answer right.
I got it backwards there. What causes tightness in ankles after eating seafood or wine at night? I have neuropathy.
Okay, well, if you got a neuropathy, I mean, I don't think that's what's causing the tightness. But you know, when you think about tightness, and you're talking about swelling, okay, of some sort, even if it's lymphatic swelling or whatever. And you know, let's take these two different foods. Seafood, you know, the possibility of some of the, you know, people don't realize how much chemicals are used in processing seafood. You know, you want to buy it local, you want to get it right off the boat, so to speak. That's the best way to do that. The other thing about the wine now, because there may be something in there you're allergic to, but when you get to wine, there's a lot of people have problems with sulfites. And most wine, unless it's an organic wine, probably is loaded with sulfites.
Right.
They can be a problem. There's a compound.
They add sulfites
to
wine unless it's the organic ones do not add sulfites. There might be a tiny bit naturally occurring, but it doesn't cause near as many problems as wine that is not organic.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a compound that we use a lot, or it's an enzyme, if you will.
Yeah.
It's called diamine oxidase. And a DAO. And DAO helps those people. I get a lot of people with those sulfite sensitivities, and it really, really, really helps them. So.
It does. It really helps with people want to be able to still drink their red wine, but they don't want to stop, so they take this.
Right.
But it does help with a lot of different allergies. But it's definitely possibly an allergy or a sensitivity to things in those foods, no doubt.
No doubt.
Okay. Another question. Do you have anything for gout?
Yes. Yep. We actually have something called uric acid formula, which is put together specifically for gout. We also have a sheet that you can pick up, or we can email it to you, where it tells you what foods to eat and what foods not to eat. And when it comes to gout, there's a lot more than just eating. For years, everybody's like, oh, it's just what you eat. Well, no, a lot of it's your genetics. A lot of it is what you do. Having an unhealthy lifestyle and eating a lot of packaged processed foods, no matter what the food is, can actually increase your risk of gout. Also, high sugar foods increase your risk of gout as well. So you really got to get off of the packaged processed food, get off of the sugar, get off, you know, I mean, that makes a big difference. So diet is huge when it comes to gout.
It really
is. But we do have something for it called uric acid formula.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting back to neuropathy, if it's not treated appropriately, what can happen?
It's going to get worse.
Well, the pain gets so severe that people end up on pain medication. They end up on a lot of medications that cause a lot of other side effects also. And so it ends up just being a never-ending cycle where, and even if it is possibly a medication that caused it in the first place, and then you take more medications for it, you know, the natural treatment is to do more of the nutrients, get to the root of the cause, and also, you know, something like the red light therapy that we talked about helps some. Laser is another natural treatment for neuropathy that does help. But again, even with those, you got to get rid of the source of the problem to begin with. And if it is a neuropathy from your low back, chiropractic does help with that. So you have to look at where does it come from, and then you can kind of go with what treats it the best then. Because you got to look at all aspects. You can't just say every neuropathy is the same. And not every person is the same.
That's true.
So that's kind of what we always try to help people with, is we help people individualize their care according to them.
Speaking of diet, are there any particular foods that will help you if you have gout?
Oh, for gout?
I'm not for gout, I'm sorry,
okay.
neuropathy. I'm sorry, I saw the screen that said gout. For neuropathy, are there any particular foods, vegetables, things like that?
The thing to watch is to stay, you know, and there's a really good diet, and you know, it's got a lot of different foods in it, and it's the anti-inflammatory diet.
Right.
It's got an autoimmune anti-inflammatory diet, and it's really good because a lot of foods that you eat, you don't realize it, that have a lot of inflammatory compounds in them. Stuff you eat every day, or may eat every day. And the thing about, for instance, your nightshade plants, things like tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplant. The good stuff.
Which some of those are normally good for you,
Yeah.
but if somebody has a big inflammatory process, it's going to make it worse.
Yeah.
And you don't want that inflammation on the nerve,
Right.
because the inflammation on the nerve is what's actually contributing to it. But like I said, there's no doubt probably the majority of what we see with neuropathies is from blood sugar.
Right.
So you've got to get that sugar down. And I don't mean just people come in and say, oh, my A1C is good, it's under 7. That ain't going to do it.
No.
You have to have it normal.
Yeah.
And when I say normal, below 5.6 and even better, below 5.4. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, a lot of the research shows that even before you're pre-diabetic, you can actually still cause some damage to the
Yeah.
nerves from sugar. So sugar itself is a problem. And it's not just straight sugar, high carbohydrates that turn to sugar also affect that.
Yeah, starchy carbohydrates especially.
Yep.
Now you talked about foods that can actually help. Omega-3 fatty acids and the fatty fish.
Right.
Those things are great. Not the shrimp or anything, when you get into seafood, but the fatty fish, like for instance, your salmon. Great food to eat. It's got an anti-inflammatory effect. It'll help you a lot. Mm-hmm. And taking omega-3s.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why you do blood work again, find out exactly
And actually the SPMs, which are really, really, really good for inflammation.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that you
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No doubt.
And of course, you can also go and find some more information on the Doctors Nutrition Facebook page, also on their website, doctorsnutrition.com. Also, YouTube. Of course, be sure you go on YouTube and sign up for a lot of the great, viewership on there.
Right.
The members, start watching that, because not only this show, but a lot of other shows.
Yeah,
Sir?
subscribe, ring the
Subscribe
bell.
that's the word I was trying to find.
Keep up, yeah, there you
Subscribe.
go.
Subscribe to their page on YouTube.
There you go.
Because there's a lot of great stuff on there that
That's
you
true.
can learn.
A lot of
as
good
well.
videos that you can go back and watch on various things. If it's the hemoglobin A1C or whatever.
Yeah, we
we've
recently
got
did one
videos
on long COVID. That was
yeah.
really interesting. So if you're wondering why you still have that cough,
Yep.
could
Yep.
do that. So
Exactly.
go back and check.
Exactly.
Well, let's see what our special of the week is this week.
Yeah, this week we're going to put on our methylcore. Now, methylcore is a methylated, and it's the methylcobalamin, and it's the methylated folate. So it was a real folate. That's a biggie. Plus, it's got some other stuff in it too. It's designed to help give you those methylated nutrients that we need for proper methylation in
Right,
the
which does help neuropathies as
neuropathies,
well.
et cetera. Yeah.
And actually, it was kind of designed to lower homocysteine, and homocysteine being high has been shown to actually increase neuropathy. So if you have high homocysteine, that's one of the things that can damage the nerve.
Right.
And methylcore lowers that homocysteine.
Take one every day.
Yep,
Does neuropathy cause weakness in the arms?
it can. Yeah, weakness is another thing because it affects the muscles as well, because the nerves tell the muscles what to do. So it definitely can cause weakness. It can cause a lot of different symptoms.
Yeah.
But that's why you want to get to the root of the problem if you have a neuropathy, figure out what's causing it, and do something for the cause.
Okay. Next week,
Next week, we're going to talk about how to overcome your genetics.
overcome your what?
Genetics.
Genetics.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
Well,
That's great.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
can't do anything about the genetics, but
can't
we
change
But if you can
genes,
overcome
you
them.
can change what
we
you
can
do.
overcome them.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's right.
We'll see you next week. Have a good week.
For more information on highlighting your business and services on Healthy Living South Mississippi, contact Jim Tabor at 896-1313.